The privilege of a lifetime, embracing intelligence and authenticity. The privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. You know that moment when you're sitting in a coffee shop and you overhear someone confidently explaining why the earth is flat, and your brain does that thing where it wants to jump in with about 17 different scientific explanations, but instead you just take another sip of your probably overpriced latte and smile to yourself. I spent years thinking there was something wrong with me. While everyone else seemed content discussing celebrity gossip or the weather, my mind was busy contemplating the psychological implications of social media on collective consciousness. Not exactly small talk material, right? But here's the thing, and this is where our old friend Schopenhauer comes in. What if I told you that this mental hyperactivity, this constant analysis of everything, isn't actually a flaw? Although, spoiler alert, it's not exactly a pure blessing either. Schopenhauer, who was basically the original doom-scrolling philosopher, had this fascinating take on intelligence. He saw it as a double-edged sword, kind of like having a superpower that occasionally turns against you. Think Spider-Man, but instead of shooting webs, you're shooting existential questions into the void at 3 a.m. Let's break this down into what I call the curse of consciousness. And yes, I'm fully aware of how dramatically philosophical that sounds, but stick with me here. First off, intelligent people often see patterns that others miss. It's like having HD vision in a world of standard definition, except when you're trying to enjoy a movie but can't stop analyzing the plot holes, or when you're at a party and can't help but notice all the subtle social dynamics playing out like some psychological chess game. I remember being at a friend's wedding, and while everyone was enjoying the celebration, I was fascinated by how the seating arrangement reflected various social hierarchies and relationship dynamics. My date thought I was just really interested in the centerpieces. I didn't have the heart to tell her I was mentally writing a sociology thesis. But here's where it gets interesting, and a bit heavy, I warn you. Schopenhauer believed that higher intelligence often leads to greater suffering. Not because smart people are more prone to stubbing their toes, though I haven't seen any studies disproving this, but because awareness itself can be a burden. Think about it. When you truly understand the complexity of life's big questions, it becomes harder to find satisfaction in simple answers. It's like being a wine connoisseur. Once you know what good wine tastes like, it's harder to enjoy the cheap stuff. Except instead of wine, we're talking about existence itself. No pressure, right? But don't worry, this isn't going to be a complete downer. Because while intelligence might complicate things, it also offers unique opportunities for joy and understanding that aren't available otherwise. It's like having an all-access pass to the universe's greatest show, even if sometimes that show is a bit more dramatic than we'd like. Let's talk about what I call the overthinking Olympics. Those moments when your brain decides to run a marathon while you're trying to fall asleep. You know what I mean. You're lying there, and suddenly you're contemplating whether your cat judges you for talking to her in a baby voice, which leads to wondering about animal consciousness, which somehow ends with you questioning the nature of reality itself. The thing is, this kind of thinking isn't just mental gymnastics. It's your mind trying to make sense of a world that frankly doesn't always make sense. And that's where many intelligent people struggle. We're pattern-seeking missiles in a chaos-filled world. But here's what Schopenhauer didn't emphasize enough, and what I've learned through years of both studying philosophy and trying to function as a somewhat normal human being. Intelligence, properly channeled, can be a tool for profound connection rather than isolation. Yes, you might feel like an alien at times when you're the only one in the room excited about discussing quantum physics over pizza, but there's something beautiful about being able to see the world in high definition, to understand its complexities, and still choose to engage with it fully. I've learned to embrace what I call strategic simplicity. Sometimes being intelligent means knowing when to dial it back, not because you're hiding who you are, but because you understand that not every moment needs to be an intellectual summit. Sometimes a sunset is just beautiful, and it doesn't need to be analyzed in terms of atmospheric science and light refraction. This brings us to what I consider the most important part of this discussion: finding balance. Intelligence doesn't have to be a curse, and it doesn't have to isolate you. The key is learning to shift gears, to know when to engage your analytical powers and when to just be. Think of your mind like a high-performance car. Yes, it can go from 0 to 60 in seconds, analyzing complex problems and seeing hidden connections, but it also needs to be able to cruise comfortably, to enjoy the scenic route without always racing to the next intellectual destination. Here's what I found helps. First, find your tribe. They're out there, other people who get excited about deep discussions and complex ideas. Thanks to technology, you can connect with them even if they're not physically near you. Second, develop what I call intellectual empathy. Understanding that not everyone processes information the same way doesn't make them less valuable as human beings. Sometimes, the person who sees the world simply has something profound to teach the person who sees it complexly. Third, and this is crucial, learn to laugh at yourself. Your brain might be capable of understanding string theory, but you still probably put your shirt on backwards this morning. We're all human, regardless of our intellectual capacity. The beauty of intelligence isn't in how it sets you apart, but in how it allows you to understand and connect with the world in your unique way. Yes, sometimes it means lying awake at night contemplating the nature of consciousness while your cat judges you. But it also means having the capacity to appreciate both the complexity and simplicity of life. Remember what Carl Jung said about the privilege of being who you are? That's what this is all about. Your intelligence isn't a burden to bear or a badge to wear. It's simply part of who you are. The trick isn't to fight it or to flaunt it, but to integrate it into your life in a way that brings more understanding, more connection, and yes, more joy. So the next time you find yourself in that coffee shop, overhearing questionable scientific theories, remember, your intelligence isn't just about knowing better. It's about understanding more, including understanding when to take another sip of that overpriced latte and simply smile. Because in the end, the real gift of intelligence isn't just the ability to understand the world, it's the wisdom to know how to live in it.